This was the President of the United States in a public place going after a woman accusing his Supreme Court nominee, a sitting federal judge, of sexual assault.
There's a certain moment in which, in this country, I think we all need to take a breath and say, who are we? And this is one of those moments. Because we are talking about the most powerful positions in the land, President of the United States, Justice of the Supreme Court, if Judge Kavanaugh were to get appointed to this position. Whatever we believe, and there are plenty of people who have different views of what happened here, the fundamental question is, are we a people who are compassionate and believe that there has to be a just process of understanding what we know? In this case, that means a thorough and complete, neutral, nonpartisan FBI investigation on one level, but secondly, a leadership that says that we are a compassionate land in which we listen to the real experiences of our people. And we understand that we have to have a process for understanding whether someone was harmed. And Dr. Ford, no matter what anyone thinks of her, I don't know anyone, and I have talked to folks on both sides of the aisle in the community, not in Congress, but in the community, and no one has said they thought she was a liar. So to be a president of the United States who has substantially more power than Dr. Ford does, to make fun of what is nothing less than a clear, raw expression of trauma, is something that we should, as a nation, say, no. It is not okay, it is not acceptable, and it's not about what you believe is truth or not truth. It's just about whether or not we have any compassion whatsoever for our fellow citizen.
Did Dr. Ford's attorney get it about right tonight that this is why more women don't come forward?
Absolutely. If you think, now remember that the social science, I mean, even if we just take this from the standpoint, I'm put on my faculty hat,
right, you're the college
of social
professor.
Science, the social science tells us that people do not come forward because they feel ashamed, they feel fear, they feel that they will be blamed, they feel that they will not be believed. And we have the single most powerful man in the country telling people, you will be belittled, you will be ostracized, you will be in the square of public opinion, you will be ridiculed. And Brian, you and I have had this conversation before. This isn't just an issue of women. This is for men and women, girls and boys, because in this society, we have people who are sexually abused, sexual violence, sexual molestation of all genders.
I realize this is emotional stuff. Thank you.
It is emotional stuff, and
I
appreciate you, because I think at some point as a country, and I'm a lawyer, so I could put legal hat on, but I think at some point in the country, what we saw today is fundamentally about whether or not we are a compassionate society.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.